Here is a quick presentation of the WP7 Meeting Assistant, Year 2. This is a milestone number 12 to be delivered by the end of June 2024. So last year, we made a first Meeting Assistant prototype called Mr. Meeting, and we evaluated it on our own Utter meetings. And also we created an open source benchmark based on the identified meetings from the editor dataset. And this year, we are going to present the second Meeting Assistant prototype, which is due by the end of June 2024. And it's now called Team for Trust in Me. So for this Meeting Assistant prototype, we have a staged vision. So last year, we presented a general purpose LLM-powered assistant that was customized to answer meeting questions in a friendly setting. But this Meeting Assistant was not ready for deployment and going public, basically. Why? Because it's not robust enough. What we need and what we aim at building this year is a solid Meeting Assistant in the real, less amicable world. Why is it more challenging? It's just because in the real world, some question can be beyond the assistant mission. They can be inappropriate, they can be ambiguous, and you want to deal with that. Also, we also wanted to address the privacy problem when some private LLMs, such as LLMs from OpenAI, are used. So we also address this problem by setting up a local server so that open models protected on a given server can be used. And eventually, the Euro LLM model will be used as well. So this is the architecture of TEAM. TEAM stands for Trust in Me. Basically, you have the interaction between the human and the agent, which is here. And each time there is a new human utterance, this one will be filtered based on some filter specification. I will talk about them later on. And so we want to define the boundaries of the assistant mission, and we want also to filter inappropriate user requests. So all of this is defined in those filter specification, and the human request might be rejected because it doesn't respect those specification. In that case, a canned answer will be provided to the human. But if the request is going through, then the request will be processed by the main large language model, which has also access to the dialogue history, to the persona of the agent, of course, to some static content, for instance, information about the Utter project, and to some dynamic content, for instance, transcript of a given meeting. And with all this information, all put in the prompt, then an answer or response will be generated. And what we added in the end also is some kind of self-reflection of the agent's own responses according to some principles we also defined. And after that, only after that, the answer to the agent is provided. So you can see here, it's not only about having a single LLM, but it's a full system that is built around a LLM, and actually several LLMs can be called because those filter and this self-reflection is also based on LLMs. In addition to this, we want to access to a large panel of LLMs. They can be remote, OpenAI or Anthropic models. They can be on a local servers to access, for instance, big Llama models such as Llama 370 billion. And it can even be local on the computer. But in that case, you need to access small and quantized llamas. Otherwise, it will be too slow. And still, even with small and quantized llamas, it's quite slow. So I will not demonstrate this part related to local computers. So in order to build this, we added those safety components that are based on LLMs. We wanted them to be explainable. So when a filter is triggered, then there will be some explanations provided on why the request was rejected. As output of the agent, we auto-evaluate the respect of principles, and again, some explanation are provided when the non-respect of those principles is triggered. For the moment, there is no specific follow-up action. We just wanted to check that it's possible to verify that some principles are respected or not. But if the principles are not respected, for the moment, we did not implement any specific action. And then we implemented the private access to LLMs on a local server or even on the local machine. Later on this summer, we plan to work on asking clarification questions when needed. So this is this uncertainty awareness that is addressed in WP5. Before the demo, let's have a look to the code base. We're using Python and Streamlit for the UI. So here you can see that there are different kinds of large language models that can be accessed. They can be local, and in that case, I have to run a local server on my machine. It can be based on LLM Studio or on Gen.ai. There are many now that provide, but the requirement is that the models have to be small and possibly quantized. And I will not demonstrate this because it works, but somehow it's very slow, especially when the context is big. You can also have a local access to a local server here. So we set up one LLM server at NLE that serves several models of medium size or bigger size until Llama 70 billion, for instance. And here I'm going to demonstrate a model that is working very well. We evaluated it on a lighter bench, and it's actually at the level of GPT 3.5 in terms of performance on a lighter bench. So this is a 5 model from Microsoft, medium size, so 14 billion parameters, instructed, and it has a context window of 128K. And you will see that it's quite fast at answering. And obviously, we can still access OpenAI models such as GPT-4, GPT-4o, Anthropic's models, and so on. So we have seen that there is a configuration file which looks like this. It's a JSON file where we can basically define which LLM will be used, will be accessed for instance, generating the answers. So we call it the utterer. It will generate the answers to the user request. But we also need to implement some filters. And it can be a different LLM, actually, that will power the filter. So here, for instance, I have the utterer defined by a local NLE server. The file model I presented, and I have a filter which will use OpenAI GPT-4o model. But of course, this can be changed. Just to demonstrate the effect of the filters, I set up here a few filters. It's a bit subjective definition of the filters. For instance, I wanted my utterances to be expressed in English, French, or Korean. Otherwise, they are rejected. I wanted, of course, those utterances to be free of toxic content. And also, I wanted somehow to control the boundaries of the mission of the meeting assistant. So I want the user request to contain questions and utterances that are expected for a conversational meeting assistant, such as greetings, questions about meetings or project, clarification, acknowledgement, and closure. So we have a bunch of Markdown files that define different things. For instance, this persona.md will define the persona of the meeting assistant, and it will be put on the system prompt. We have some static content that can be added. So here I added some static content about the Utter project. So you can see that I provided some static content about Utter project itself, name of people, what is their role, where do they work, the main objectives of the project, the work packages. It can be anything, but just to demonstrate that now that we have access to longer context, a lot can be put in this static content, for instance. I defined some principles to be respected. This is for the self-reflection filter that will judge afterwards the assistant's answer. And here, it's sometimes difficult to demonstrate the respect of those principles. So I added a special request here in order to check if it works or not in my demo. So this special request is never speak about Vlad nor mention his name. Obviously, in a normal meeting assistant, we will never do that, but it's just to demonstrate that it's possible to check that the agent's answer will respect or not this request. And obviously, there is some dynamic content. For the moment, it's just a form of loading a specific meeting, but we could use retrieval augmentation, for instance. But for the moment, it just will be like some different meeting information. For instance, here you have one meeting, you have the date, the meeting agenda, and the transcript, which is in the same format as the format we already know for the last year meeting assistant. That's it for the code. Let's look at the agent now and how it works. Let's now have a demo of Tim, the assistant. I loaded a specific meeting file, which is a meeting that was in November 2022. And let me start interacting with Tim. On the left part, you will see the logs of what's going on. I can start by saying, hello, why are you called Tim? I get my answer. You can see that the filter is okay. The utterance is correct. The principles are respected. And you can see that the answers comes from the persona that was provided in the system prompt. I can ask, when was this meeting again? Because maybe I don't remember. And it's provided in the dynamic content. And it should be on November 14th. So I get my answer. And again, I can see on the left part that the filter is okay. The principles are respected. Let me now continue asking something. Something like, let me ask a question in German, for instance, just to see that the filter will block it and will reject it, because I asked specifically to only have requests in English, French, and Korean. I ask my question in German, and you can see that I have this specific emoji, and it explains me why it's rejected. The utterance is in German, which does not meet the guideline of being expressed in English, French, or Korean. And I got that in the log as well. Let me ask a question about WP8. And maybe I don't remember what it is about. And it's on dissemination. Let me ask if it was addressed. And I think the answer should be no. So you can see it's still like the assistant as we know it from Mr. Meeting. So no, it was not addressed. Let me congratulate Tim, but with some toxic words. And you can see that here the utterance is rejected because of inappropriate language. You can see that on the log as well with this KO here. And let me ask something about Vlad. I think Vlad was there. But remember, in my principles, there is something about never mentioning Vlad's name. So what is going to happen here? So yes, Vlad attended the meeting, but what you can see is that here, I got this specific emoji telling me the answer might not respect my principles because, yes, obviously, the utterance mentioned Vlad by name, which violates a special request to never speak about him or mention his name. So you can see that this quick implementation of the respect of principle is kind of working, but of course, no specific action is done afterwards. So it's just a work in progress about this. And let me ask a last question, just to see that we can go back to the normal regime after that. So for instance, when is the deadline for the HPC grant proposal submission? And I'm back to normal regime, filter is okay. And so are the principles, deadline for the SPC grant proposal submission is November 30 at 1 p.m. And my principles are respected as well. Okay, let me stop here for this part. Let's now use a different language model. I'm going to access NLE server, which serves several language models. Among them, I'm going to use the 5.3 billion instructed model, which has a context window of 128K. And again, this model, we evaluated it on a highlighter bench, and it's as good as GPT 3.5 on our benchmark. Okay, so let's look at the assistant and let's ask a question. I changed the meeting. Now it's a meeting that took place in 2023. And let me ask a question like, hello, who attended the meeting? And now it's 5.3 model that is going to answer. You can see that the speed is quite decent. I have the list of individuals present at the meeting. You see that the style of presentation is a bit different. And again, as Vlad is mentioned, there is a trigger of non-respect of the principles because I didn't change the principles. Let me ask another question, something like, what did Barry say, for instance? Okay, I got the answer from 5. Filter and principles are okay. Let me ask something that is not relevant, such as, you can see that the filter is still working here. The iterance is a mathematical question and not related to a conversational meeting assistant expected topics, so it is rejected. Let me ask who is in charge of the WP data and resources. You can see that 5.3 is quite good at this. I get the answer from Marcelli, and you see it's an open model and it's quite fast, and it can actually access to the long context and answer with a decent delay. Did Laurent participated? Because I was not at this meeting. So let me ask, and I'm not in the transcript, so it is said no, there was no mention of someone named Laurent. And again, it tells me who are the participant, and since Vlad is again mentioned, I got this trigger of non-respect of principles. Let me say something about toxic about myself, like Laurent was again on vacations. It's a personal remark. It should trigger the filter. Ah, no, it didn't trigger anything. You can see that here it passed. Let me say something like Laurent is always on vacation. It is bad for the project. And here you see I get the filter trigger, the utterance contains a negative judgment about a person's behavior. So interestingly, the first utterance, Laurent was again on vacation, went through. So again, you can see that it's a bit tricky to set up the filters correctly. Let me ask a last question with some toxic content again in French, for instance. And again, you can see that it tells me that the language is inappropriate, which is considered toxic. So bye team and bye everyone. Thanks for your attention.